Hello and welcome to the Business of Betting podcast. Today I'm joined by three guests, Sam, Adam and Sam. Guys, thanks very much for coming on. Before we get into this episode, make sure you follow us on Twitter, @bettingpod, and check out the website, businessofbetting.com. Guest suggestions are much appreciated. This podcast is proudly sponsored by Betfair Proprietary Limited. Betfair operates a betting exchange and is licensed in the Northern Territory of Australia. Residents of Australia can join Betfair by visiting betfair.com.au and support this podcast by using promo code BOBPOD. Please gamble responsibly. So thank you for listening and I hope you enjoy this episode of the Business of Betting podcast. Today I'm joined by three guests, Sam, Adam and Sam. Guys, thanks very much for coming on.
Cheers, man. It was great.
Howdy.
So this is a first for me and for us here. We're going with three, which is certainly exciting and fun, and I'm looking forward to see how this goes. So let's get straight into it. Sam H., do you want to start with yourself and how you got started with the crew, and we'll go one by one just to get some background in the beginning.
Yeah, sure. I first started match betting 5 years ago now. Very similar story to a lot of people that started. I came across a website called Money Saving Expert. Was doing match betting to supplement my ski seasons, which I was doing. Working in Canada, Japan, Australia, Austria. And made a nice little income from it. And then I moved over to Australia, basically, middle of 2015. And there was basically not a hell of a lot going on over here in terms of talk of match betting or, nothing I could find of any substance anywhere. So I basically took upon myself to start up a Facebook community. And, we went from there, basically. And I got, from there, it grew from like a bunch of other sources, people, recommending each other to the group, which is where Sam and Adam came in. And just conversations, networking with a lot of other match bettors, value punters. And we took it upon ourselves to create this, what I would say, magnificent little website, which is Bonus Money. But, I'm still doing it today. Still betting like full time and running Bonus Money as a nice little successful business. That's basically my story as to how I got here.
Adam?
Yeah, cool. So I've been match betting for a long time. I started in about 2004. I was working for a university and I had a really slack job where I worked across two campuses in two different cities, and neither of the campuses knew where I was supposed to be. So I was able to literally only turn up to work a couple of days a week. But I was actually really bored. So I was just looking for ways to make money online. Again, the same place that Sam found it, I found it on a site called Money Saving Expert. And literally within about 6 months of finding it, I was making more doing match betting than I was in my job. So after that, I quit my job, did that for full time for about 4 years, match betting, moved over to Australia 6 years ago, and shocked at just how good the offers were here, and equally shocked that nobody was really talking about it. And that's when I found Sam's community. And that was the only place really in Australia that people were talking lots about match betting. And then teamed up with him. And I think one of the things when I was doing it full time back in the UK, there was always part of me that really didn't like the fact that it's okay making money gambling, but it didn't seem much, there wasn't much kind of doing good for society or doing much useful. Where offering a service where other people can do it as well, at least other people could take advantage of it rather than just me making money. So that's why I kind of wanted to build a service to help other people to make money doing it.
Yeah, that's an interesting distinction. Sam, do you want to jump in as well?
Yeah, I came from a slightly different background, I guess. I'm the technical one of the group. I was working a normal technical day job. We were doing business billing for ISPs and telcos. Had a phone call from a random number trying to sell me a sports differential calculator. It was it was going to cost about 35 grand. He was going to cut me a deal and sell it to me for 20 grand. I was not uninterested at the time. I was like, all right, and did a bit of searching around and found the term sports arbitrage, and that started me down this path where I've ended up meeting up with these guys and plenty of other people in the community and helping run this bonus money thing.
So bonus money is a site, and it's a very slick site. So you guys have obviously done a good job getting it up and running and where it is today. Match betting, that term, certainly for the the listeners here in the US may not know what that means. They probably think it's betting on the outcome of a game. Take us through just generally what the term means and how it's sort of spoken about in industry parlance.
Yeah, so I'll jump in on this one. Match betting is basically, simplest form, matching your bets to cancel out the risk. So you are basically backing all outcomes of an event. So, if it's a head-to-head game between any NFL game or whatever, say it's a Super Bowl, and you've got a free bonus, you would then just basically back, Patriots one side, and you could then go with another bookmaker or a betting exchange. You then lay it or back that side over there. So you're basically taking a small loss if you're using your cash, but if you're using a bonus, then you're basically using the bookmaker's own money. To basically make a risk-free profit from it. And now you can do that with the sign-up bonuses. You can do that with ongoing promotions that bookmakers throw at you, left, right, and centre. That's basically what match betting is.
So literally you put $50 in two separate accounts and they might double that to $100 each, let's say, which is 50 real and 50 bonus. And then you put that $100 on both sides and of your total outlay of $100, it might turn out to be more than 100. Is that essentially how it works?
Yeah, if you've got $50 on one team and then $50 on another with a bonus, then you're not going to make too much money if it's like odds of evens. But if you go in, say, really we're looking for odds above 5 or more, or something like that, to be able to retain a decent amount from our bonus bets. Yeah, we're usually looking for anything above 70% plus, really. From a $100 bonus, we're wanting to be making $70 and so on and so forth.
So let's go into some of the challenges with it. What do the bookmakers think generally about this?
Well, I don't think they're too happy with what we're doing. But at the end of the day, they can't really do too much about it because at the end of the day, bookmakers are always going to try to entice new customers, but also entice their existing customers to keep betting with them. So there's literally no other way for them to do that without offering, whether it's bonuses, promotions, enhanced odds, whatever it is that's going to keep them getting accustomed to them. So unless you're, a bookmaker like Bet365, for instance, or Sportsbet over here, where they're just shouting at you down the telly, bookmakers have got to compete, and that's the only way that they know how to do so, really, is just by marketing bonuses.
And what about the patience and discipline and diligence required to execute this type of thing, which in isolation sounds simple, but I'm guessing over a number of matches and a number of bets, it requires some diligence to pull it off. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, after doing it yourself manually without software and whatnot, it does become, it's tedious and it does get fairly dull, to be honest. Just at the end of the day, you're just staring at numbers on the screen. I know there's plenty of punters that are doing that anyway, but it doesn't get that much fun. I mean, there's quite a nice kick that you're going to be making risk-free money from it and know that you're whatever bets you're placing have positive EV, but it does get a bit dull after a bit. But then, using our site for example, you just pop in and your bets are basically display what you need to do, and you can be in and out of the site and placing your bets within a matter of minutes, really, just dependent on what it is. But for more advanced strategies, then you can be sat down for on a Saturday afternoon, for instance, taking advantage of the horse racing promotions here in Australia. You could be sat there for 4 or 5 hours, but it all just becomes a blur after a bit because it ends up being fast paced because there really is that much to be getting on. Like there's literally like the first few races on the Saturday, could be up to 7 or 8 bookmakers offering bonuses. So yeah, it does become a whirlwind sometimes, but yeah, a lot of the time it can be quite dull.
Well, Saturday afternoons are interesting because I find that it's very much it's based on the major races. So you've got a Flemington or a Caulfield running. It's a flurry of like 5 or 10 minutes activity, and then you're just kind of sitting around for 20 minutes waiting for the next race.
I think one of the areas as well, though, is that helps people get started is the community. So that lots of people, when you first read about this technique, it's kind of I like still vividly remember placing my first match bet, and this was, as I say, it was back in 2004, and this was before match betting services really existed. It was just talked about in forums, and I remember kind of like sweating over placing my first £10 bet, like checking and double checking the maths for it. I'd literally written my own spreadsheet and to go through the maths and like do it. But that is really when it comes to like what's useful, that's where the community really kicks in, because if you see that other people are doing it and can ask questions, it really takes a lot away of that fear of like first getting started. So having other people do it, and that goes all the way through. So once you've learned that, the most basic thing that people get into in match betting is to complete all the sign-up bonuses. So in Australia, people can make anywhere between like $2,000 and $4,000 if they complete all the sign-up bonuses on offer available to them, depending on which state they're in. But that's only really like the start of it. After that, there's so many ongoing promotions that people can take advantage of. But it's through interacting with people with the community that helps people to spur on and do those different activities. So obviously sites like Bonus Money, we show all that information and help people and guide them to it. But it's really from communicating with other people that you start to learn about all these different ways that people are making money from all these different offers. So I kind of find, I was never really from a gambling background, but I kind of find even from pro punters, it can be quite adversarial, that people are almost like, I want to get one up against each other. Whereas the match betting community, and especially within our community, is much more friendly and welcoming, and people want other people to succeed. So the community definitely helps for people to get started and be successful with it.
What about the bankroll required to get started? You mentioned you might need to fill 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 accounts, and there's availability up to 4,000 potentially. Do you need $4,000 to get started, or can you start lower with the bankroll and grow it potentially?
Again, this is different to what happened in the UK, because the offers here are very generous. The UK offers, as I say, my first bet was with Coral, and it was a £10 sign up bonus. So as Sam mentioned earlier, really to take the best advantage of a sign-up bonus to get the best bonus retention, with your bonus bet, you want to be betting at higher, like slightly higher odds. The odds you want to be betting on something that's a close match between the bookmaker and the betting exchange, but the odds want to usually be in the range of like 5, 6, 7, 8. So to do that on a £10 bet, you'd need to place your £10 into Coral, but you'd also need to have £60 or £70 in Betfair to cover it. But in Australia, there are less bookies available, but the sign-up bonuses are typically much larger. So I think the smallest sign-up bonus is really with the tab, and that's $100. So to take full advantage of that, you want to have really at least $500 to get started, because that's enough to at least cover getting your first bet and like turning over the bonus using an exchange. It's a lot easier if you now you can always go smaller. Like you could deposit $50 with a lot of bookies. They'll match your deposit up to how much you put in. But obviously you only get to do the sign up bonuses once, so you really want to be like taking full advantage of them. So $500 is almost like the minimum we'd suggest to people to get started with it in Australia. But if you've got a larger bankroll, it is much more advantageous because you can just move it through more quickly, because you can do more than one sign-up bonus at once, and you can also take advantage of the larger offers. But $500 is, I'd say, the starting point. But the great thing about this is it's unlike any form of punting. there, as long as you follow like the step-by-step processes, you're really, we can't, it's a very hard thing legally to say like there's absolutely no risk in doing this stuff, but there really isn't. If you like follow the steps, then you're guaranteed to make like that sort of $70 off that first free bet that you get. And that's all the way through with all the sign-up bonuses. So the risk
of ruin is very low.
Yeah. And we actually, it's funny that like the people that are attracted to match betting, like match betting is not actually very popular with people that are into like gambling. The people that come across us are more typically people that are into looking at ways to make money online. So they're usually generally like reasonably computer savvy. Don't mind spending a bit of time on computer. It helps if you could with numbers. It helps if you kind of have got that mindset of looking at a way of like getting an edge over like taking advantage of promotions and stuff. But there isn't, you're not sitting watching a game and hoping that a team will win. It doesn't matter. You're placing the bets purely to take advantage of the offer. So we tend to attract people that are interested in making money rather than interested in gambling.
Can I ask about the higher odds? Does it make much difference, or it sounds like it does, but why does it make much difference if you can back at $1.90 and lay on the exchange at $1.90 versus backing at $5 and laying at $5? Is there a rollover thing that matters, or is it the higher the odds, the more the bookmakers are happy with those bets?
It's because of the bonus bets are stake not returned. So if you're putting the $50 bet on at $2, you would only get $50 back. Versus if you're putting the $50 bonus bet on at $5, you get much more back. Which, when you compare with the lay, the more that you're making back from the bet, the more that you retain. There's actually a graph floating around that it took me quite a while to both realize and understand why. But there's a graph floating around that I'm sure we could share as a comment somewhere that really shows it quite well and why that's the case. I
think also a really good, easy way of visualizing it. So yeah, as Sam says, it's stake non-returned. So you don't get your stake back with any winnings. But the easy way of thinking that is if you had a $100 free bet, if you were to stick it on something that was 1.01, so like guaranteed winning, you'd only get $1 back. So you really, even if you're backing and laying that, you could only ever get like $1 from it. So you need to use higher odds because the stake isn't returned with it. That's the basic thing of it. And then you look at the difference between the odds at the bookie and the odds at the betting exchange. So if you're able to back at 7 and lay at 7, with the odds being stake non-return, you're basically backing at you're effectively backing at odds of 6 and laying at 7. Whereas again, going to the example of like 1.01, even if it was 1.01 back and 1.01 lay, you'd be effectively backing at 0.01 and laying at 1.01. So it's just that because the stake isn't returned, you need to be backing at higher odds to get a better return from your bonus bets. But again, that's one of the things that match betting services and match betting calculators will help you with, because you can then very easily, like we've got an odds matcher and as well horse racing software that helps with this, that will identify for you and tell you the exact percentage return that you'd be getting from your bonus bet.
Yeah, that makes sense. And what about, do you need to mix in, or what's the thought process around mixing in regular betting behavior and activities if you want to try and disguise what's going on, if that's necessary at all?
Yeah, it's an interesting one that, like, I think this has changed as people have become more sophisticated with it. I think in the past that there's definitely an opinion from me, again, from when I first started, that bookies generally didn't care too much, as in that the match betting population was very small in comparison to the whole of the betting population, like the whole of their customers. But over time, I mean, you look at the UK scene, like it's still relatively new to Australia, match betting, but in the UK, I think there's somewhere between like 50 and 100,000 people that do this actively, and these are people that are all like sharp and taking advantage of the promotions. So the bookies now look to filter out people that are taking advantage of the promotion. So what happens is that if all you do is bet on the promotions, the bookie will end up sending you an email saying, look, we're not going to offer you those promotions anymore. Like within the language, we'd call it like being gubbed, where they just say, yep, no more promotions for you. And the bookies are getting quicker and quicker at filtering people out. So even within the last couple of years, noticing it within the Australian bookies, and having spoken to people within it, like I think people like Sportsbet, they used to let people like go on, and then we're getting reports now where people will kind of place a couple of bets. They'll open their account for the first time, place a few bets, and even within the course of a weekend, they'll send an email saying the promotions are no longer available to you. So it's becoming more important now to mix in some bets, which again we'd lovingly call like mug punting, where it's like more of a mug bet to kind of like keep under the radar a little bit to make sure that you're still able to take advantage of this. And the promotions are just ridiculously good value. Like, we're always talking about value. We put a big emphasis on the bonus money side about calculating the expected value for people. So what is the expected value is just the average amount of money that you could expect to make from playing the promotion. So we work out all the maths by calculating what's the chance of something. So this would be with an ongoing promotion, like what is the chance of something triggering, and how much money would you make if you did that? With that expected value, that's the expected value is the amount of money that you could expect to make, and we're really getting an edge with bookies somewhere in the region of like a 10% advantage. So with a $50 ongoing bonus, we could be making an expected value of like $5. So we really have a huge edge. So even if we're going to be placing some mug bets and giving some money back, we're still going to come out on top, and it can be more valuable to mix in and prolong the life of your betting account and like with these promotions rather than just getting canned after a few weeks or a few months.
But with that, there's like still a few like simple strategies that people can implement. Like for example, betting on something as close to the game time as possible. Like because basically the way the bookmakers are going to identify if you're taking value is how much you beat the SP by. So that's like one thing that the simplest thing that they're checking. So if you're betting closer to that start time, you're not necessarily going to be smashing in that SP. Obviously, it can go 50-50 either way. But then there's like a few other things you can do. You can obviously be selective of the promotions that you're playing. So if you go in and smash every single promotion available, then your lifetime of that specific bookmaker is not going to be too long. Also like betting on obscure markets as well. So, if you've got a bonus bet and you see an opportunity to get decent retention by betting on Danish handball, that's probably not like a smart idea either. And then if you're just doing it as well, like a lot of people, when they first start this out and see the money-making opportunity, a lot of people try to go straight into arbitrage betting, which isn't a great idea either, because arbitrage betting has been around for a hell of a long time, like before like promotion bets really. So bookmakers can identify that very quickly. So they'll can you then. With arbitrage bets, we suggest people do that after they've been banned from promotions anyway, because they don't tend to limit your stakes usually after you've been banned from promotions.
I unfortunately discovered that after I'd started arbing a long time ago.
So on some of those horse racing promotions then, where it's money back, second and third type stuff, do you just approach it very simply and say, pick a horse within your price range that you're happy with? Or do you even say things like, look, if a horse is $6 into $3.50, then obviously you're getting a very bad price versus, the SP of that horse versus what you could have got 30 minutes before, for example, is going to look very favorable from continuing that account from the bookmaker's perspective? Or is it pretty much you try and simplify things as much as possible?
Yeah, so what we tend to advise is that people get on a horse race within 10 minutes before a race starts. Number one, well, not number one, but one of the reasons you just said is you're not beating the SP by too much. But also we gauge like all the value from Betfair. So and Betfair doesn't tend to have like any liquidity in the market until like that 10 minutes beforehand on Australian races anyway. And yeah, obviously we're using the bookmakers to get our edge. So we're basically just looking for close matches between the bookmaker price and Betfair's. And, as more money is pouring into the market, the odds are jumping all over the place. So, yeah, there are those opportunities to get close back and lay matches. But it's not just a simple case of, a lot of people think it's a simple case of just backing the favourite each time because they've got a higher chance of finishing second or third. So you get that promotional refund. But we actually have our matcher software. What it does is it basically tells you the exact expected value on each specific selection in that race. So that's where we guide people basically is, you don't necessarily take the horse which is the most cost effective. It's the one that's got the most expected value by it being cost effective, but also, with the chance of it finishing second or third. And it does tend to be, most of the time, it does tend to be the favourite, but just blindly going in and betting on the favourite isn't necessarily the best thing to be doing.
Is there an upper limit on this type of thing? Is it, the $50, let's say, or $100, and what a lot of the max amount of the promotions? Like, I'm guessing there's no high stakes match betting program, for example.
No, that's. I mean, that's another common thing within that we get from people when we've met people. We've done a few events for Betfair now that's had a really mixed audience of people that are either into match betting or just generally like heavy users of the exchange. And the common thing is like, well, can I make decent money out of like match betting? But there's opportunities to suit all sorts of bankrolls and stuff. So we've seen over the last couple of years, the bookies have had released a promotion that is early payouts. So in Australia, it's tended to be on the AFL and NRL. So both Sportsbet and Bet365 last season and potentially the season before were doing an offer whereby if your team leads by 24 points, then they'll pay you out as a winner. So that's like 4 goals in the footy. And what was like amazing about that was that there wasn't actually any maximum limit of what they'd pay out to start with when they were doing that. So you could literally on certain games stick like 10 grand on, and so you'd be like sticking like 10 grand on like a team, and then you'd either be like using one bookie to do that, and then the Bet365, one at Sportsbet, one at Bet365. So therefore, like if a team went up by 24 points but then didn't win the game, both bets would pay out as a winner. So on the example, you'd be making close to 20 grand if that happened. So there are so while some of the bonuses are definitely in the $50 like range, and that'd be like more commonplace, there's definitely a place for people making much larger sums on it as well. Another one is with, and we've got this example up on our site somewhere as well. Tab have been offering a multiplier promotion whereby they you place a bet, stick on the multiplier, and it will multiply the odds, and that multiplier could multiply the odds from anywhere from 1.02 to like 5 times the amount. And someone did a match bet of backing and laying a horse at 13, got the 5 times multiplier, so I think they won like 25 grand again on that single bet. So while the majority of the offers are definitely in the $50 bonus bet range, opportunities do come up whereby you can actually smash out a lot more. And again, like harking back to it, that's what's great about the community, and especially the bonus money community, is that these, the offers get put up all the time, and with such a smart, knowledgeable, crowdsourced information, people are able to look at the different ways that all the promotions can be exploited. And then generally what happens is that they get exploited for a point in time, and then the bookies change the terms in them. So those early payouts from Sportsbet and Bet365 are now tend to be limited to your first like $250 of the bet, because there's been some people that are just smashing it really hard. But these opportunities come up all the time.
What's the expected value on some of those more higher payout options? Is it far different to some of the more conventional ones?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, again, we did the maths of this, of like looking at how often those hit, and it was really, you could be getting expected value in the like thousands of dollars range from placing large bets. So
Yes.
so it really goes, and that's obviously not suitable for someone that, with that, you're still Whereas taking a sign-up bonus, you've basically got zero. You've got virtually zero risk from doing it. These ongoing promotions, you usually encounter a small qualifying cost because the way that bookies make their money is by having a margin on their bets, on their products, and so by touching all these offers across each other, you're going to have a small qualifying loss, but from a few percent of what you've staked. So if you're only staking a few $100s, you're really only risking a few dollars qualifying loss. But if you are staking tens of thousands of dollars across a market, then your qualifying cost does go up into the hundreds of dollars range. But again, you've got such an edge with this that the value return is just massive.
Tell me the role of Betfair in all of this, and it might be many different ones, but it sounds like before you mentioned that it helps guide your pricing, I would imagine, and looking at a horse race in particular, picking which option may be the best from a plus EV perspective. What else or what other areas is Betfair useful in the overall match betting process?
With it, like Betfair, obviously Betfair, the only people in the gambling wagering space that actually endorse and like match bettors because they fulfill the lay side of match bettors are a large part of filling the lay side of the market. So Betfair are good for that, but just generally for gauging the value is the best thing. Like a lot of the smart money comes into Betfair and a lot of shaping the prices because it's very hard to tell with the books, with the margin being anywhere from 5 to 30-40%. It's hard to tell what the actual true price is of a horse or a team or anything like that. So generally Betfair's like the big thing with Betfair is being able to gauge the value of the true price, which then like helps you with the like back and lay basically.
How is it regulated generally? Has there been any specific attacks or has there been any specific regulation at all, positive or negative, with respect to match betting, or is it really, really difficult to regulate in any shape or form?
As in from the bookies or from people outside it?
Yeah, both. Like, I guess bookies can always take things down or limit your ability to access the bonus bets or different payout structures. But what about just the industry generally? Has there been any specific regulation targeted towards bonus or match betting?
Yeah, definitely. Like I think in Australia, I mean, they're definitely looking at whether like promotions are available. So I think the Australian landscape's looking a lot more, going like, do we want to be like advertising gambling, and should they be able to like entice people to gamble with these like forms of promotion? So there's definitely, I'm not sure when this like law is coming in, but the law is supposed to stop enticements for promotions. But as Sam mentioned earlier, that tends to be the point of difference that people that the bookies use to get people to gamble with them in the first place. So my understanding is that bookies obviously just want as many customers as possible, betting as often as possible, and I really get the sense here in Australia that the general Australian punter isn't too odds. Like they don't really like go shopping around for odds and stuff too much. It's kind of like they stick with their, they might sign up with sports bet, get given a load of bonus bets and stuff, and stick with them rather than looking around for a price and stuff. So the promotions are a real point of difference to get people into the corporations to start with. So if these laws do get actioned upon and the bookies aren't able to actively openly show that they're offering promotions, it's going to be a very interesting time to see what the bookies do, because they need to differentiate themselves from each other to get the new business and to get people across. But there actually usually ends up being the most lucrative time for match bettors, because it's when bookies are having to do something new, there's usually a way that a load of smart minds can go, they're doing this, let's see how we can like wangle this little promotion in our favor. And yeah, as you say, the bookies are just always constantly looking to filter match bettors out, because as a role, even if you lose all your bets with a bookie and the money goes to the exchange, and your money goes to the exchange, just with a large enough sample size, on the whole, we're taking value away from the bookies. So they don't like match bettors.
So if I'm listening and I'm thinking, well, this is easy, I can just deposit, I can bet both sides at a not necessarily $1.40 favorite, but something in a $2 to $6 range, and I'll follow up with some of the horse racing money back bets and maybe the early payouts in Aussie rules. Give me an example of some of the software that you guys have and provide to your users that make it more efficient for them and more effective, and it's a valuable tool for them, other than trying to do all this manually yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I like to think that we make it very simple. Right from the word go, to be honest. So, starting from the very basics, we've got a very good introductory guide to match betting, where we've got software which brings up selections for the first sign up that we recommend, which is one that Adam mentioned earlier, the tab, to get your $100 bonus, which currently it's deposit $20, get $100 bonus. And with that, which is freely available to anyone that looks at the site, we've got selections that are live in there for you to pick, and then you hit that selection, like the top rated one or whichever one you desire, and then you're basically told exactly how much you need to place where and whatnot. And then from there, we do the same process with the sign-up bonuses as well, which is what we recommend everyone does to build their bank anyway, so they can go on to the ongoing promotions, which are very lucrative. With that, we've got a very pretty offer calendar, which basically just highlights every single offer available, every single promotion available that has positive expected value. We display the expected value for those specific promotions. And then from there, we've got odds matching as well. So if you pick up bonus refunds, you can then check out the odds matcher and basically lay off that bonus and get as higher retention as you can. With some of the events in our offer calendar, we've got Dutching software. So basically what happens for example, say an AFL game between Richmond or Carlton, we basically have all of the bookmakers populate into that event, and then it presents with the information with all the suggested stakes that you should be placing with each bookmaker and the current live odds, and it basically just populates so that with the cheapest qualifying loss for that. But all that's amendable as well. You can fiddle about with those calculations and move stakes, remove bookmakers. It's like a fully interactive Dutching calculator. And then from there, moving on, like the next stage, you've got the horse racing offers, which I'd say are the most profitable. So on the Saturday, you've got all your second and thirds, but also you've got the bet boosts, which Adam's explained earlier, that tab offer where one customer made 25 grand. But with those, you can get very good expected value on a daily basis. But our matcher software basically just shows you the most profitable selections to be getting on. So the matcher it's a fantastic value tool for anyone, even if you're just punting and not match betting necessarily. So what that does, it's a Chrome extension which overlays on the bookmaker pages. So it actually you hit the matcher, you select a horse racing event, decide which bookmakers you want to open, and then it opens the tabs. So you'll have Betfair open, and then whichever bookmakers you've selected, and then you've got an overlay of the bookmakers with like a little bar over each selection, each horse, which basically the default settings tell you your suggested lay stake with Betfair in order to get a certain qualifying loss, which is then shown on the bar as well. And then that as a percentage. So we really recommend to be getting on anything less than 10% qualifying loss if you're looking to qualify for a bonus, as an example. What else am I missing on there as well? We've got the expected value as well on that display. But they're like the key tools, and we've just got a bunch of guides pretty much breaking down every single offer that is available, how to play it, and then the community as well. So links back to the community, which is on Facebook, to discuss these offers. So there's quite a lot there.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it sounds like not only community, but also the tools and then some of the software as well. So if we estimate conservatively or aggressively that, let's say, 5% of the marketplace can win long-term professionally betting sports or racing, there's another 95%, or even if it's less, let's say it's 90%, Of that 90%, is there any segment of that pool of people that are betting that this doesn't work for, or it's not something they should seriously consider, do you think?
The easiest, simplest way to gain an edge and make some money off your betting. Even if you are, you're not matching your bets, so you're not betting both sides. Using the promotions in your day-to-day betting gives you an edge from the start. There's people in the community that use Matcher, which is the software that Sam was talking about that puts an overlay on the bookmaker. They just use that for everyday horse punting. So you've basically got Sportsbet open, and you've got their odds on page, and then right next to that you've got the Betfair odds. So you've got a direct comparison to see where the Betfair mob, which in our belief and many people's belief is the true wisdom. You've got the ability to see what the true mob thinks will win, and compare that to your Sportsbet, your corporate bookmakers, and get on those best prices.
What do you think the future is in Australia, for example, for this type of service, this type of offering, even just generally around match betting? Do you think it's optimistic and things will continue along as they are because bookmakers will always want to provide, incentives for people to sign up or promotions for people to bet?
I think what happens is that, like, naturally, and I saw this within the UK, is then as more and more people do this, the bookies can't be as generous with the promotion. So even within the last few years, we've seen bookmakers sign-up offers go from, so you could even get like $2,000 sign-up bonuses from individual bookies to, that would be a very, very rare occurrence to see anything that large again. So as more people do it, as like a percentage of people, so like Sportsbet's obviously got a huge customer base, but for some of the smaller bookies, if there becomes like 20, 30, 40,000 people all looking to take advantage, then all of a sudden their customer base is made up of more match bettors than it is regular punters. So they can't afford to give like those promotions. So what we tend to see over time, or what we definitely saw within the UK, is that the promotions have less expected value like attached to them. But I think that many people that are in the communities at the moment will look at the scene in 5 years' time and go, no, I can't believe that people like do this anymore, because people have got it so good even still at the moment. It was better years ago, but it's still really good now, where people can easily make like 4, 5, 6, 7, like more thousand a month, like from doing this. In 5-10 years' time, that amount possible to achieve might go down. It might be that you can only make like $1,000 a month doing it, but we charge $50 for our service, and our like technology is only going to get better and better and make it easier and easier for people. If someone can make $1,000 in like 10 hours work for just and just pay $50 for doing it, it's still going to be like good value. So I think a lot of the people that like do it now may find that it's of less interest to them in the future. But I think that there's so many people in Australia that just don't know about this way of making money, that there's always going to be a market for doing it. And I think the bookies are always going to offer some kind of incentive to get people to like gamble with them, because it's just traditionally been the corporate bookies models here in Australia, which is like they offer promotions to hook people to go in. So yeah, I think the people like doing it now might not want to do it in the future, but I think the match betting community will just grow and grow.
Yep, and I've heard the word tuition being used for what it takes in the early stages to learn about sports betting or horse racing betting, learn about betting markets, and you've got to pay your tuition to do that. But it sounds like you can get some similar level of education, let's call it, from match betting, certainly in the early stages when you can utilize sign-up bonuses and different promo codes.
And it can help pay for that tuition in sports betting.
Yep, absolutely. So what if I told you, Three, that there was a jurisdiction in the world where as soon as you sign up and register, you get a $50 bonus bet without even depositing, and then you get a risk-free bet of up to $1,000 on your first bet, and potentially another one on a different product of up to $1,000. That offering in a market with other bookmakers with similar, not necessarily better, offerings, what would that mean to you three? For those wondering what on earth I'm talking about the US market and specifically in New Jersey at the moment.
Could mean some people end up with a new postcode. It would be, if you could do so without picking up and moving to New Jersey, you'd be right on board as soon as you could be, I think.
Yeah, no, this is certainly a new market, new jurisdiction in New Jersey, and there's going to be more to come here in the US with potentially 15 or 20 going live with online and mobile sports betting in the next 12 to 18 months. So it's going to be an interesting space for not only match betting, just generally around how the market evolves. And obviously with a market like the US, tens of millions of people are going to get access to sports betting in the next 12 months. So obviously there's going to be fierce competition, and some of the things we're seeing in Australia, some of the things in Europe are clearly going to make their way to the US, and it's going to be an interesting marketplace across the board, I think.
All the information is free for match betting as well. Like anyone that can, you need to look at, if someone's looking at this in America and looking in New Jersey at the bonuses, you do need to look at the terms and conditions and see what the terms and conditions say. But if you can go on the bonus money site and look at the match betting basics guide. But there's so much free information out there that if people want to look and see if that opportunity is available to them, they just need to look at the bonus information and then also look for a match betting guide either on bonus money or just anywhere on the internet, and people can start doing it as long as you just got to check turnover requirements and things like that. But it's a huge exciting time that America's opening up to betting, for match betting and everyone really. Probably
better than a sports differential calculator or whatever it was for 20 or 35 grand or something.
That's the stuff we've got to compete with. It is one of the hardest things in the world to get on the internet and say, hey, here's a way to make money with very little risk. Just trust us. Especially when there's stuff like that out there.
No doubt about it, yeah. So before I let you all go, I want to ask one funny story or interesting story you've had throughout the years of match betting, whether yourself or someone else in the community, and also let us know best way to contact, whether it's a Twitter handle or generally through the site.
We've got a few. Which one should we pick? I can pick one of my early day ones that's just sprung to mind. When I was still just moving over to Australia, and I was still heavily involved with UK match betting. And one of the offers that came up was a casino offer. And it happened through, I say a casino offer, it was a casino loophole that happened through the night in the UK. But I was primed to do it. Obviously, I'm on the other side of the world in Australia, so it was daylight hours for us. Started at 8 o'clock in the morning. And basically the offer was with Sky Bet, and they had this offer on roulette whereby you bet £5 on red or black or whatever, just £5 on the table. And for every 10 times that red comes in, you get £10 cash added to your balance. Now, that was only supposed to happen once. You were only meant to get £10 per customer. But some guy at Sky who set this promotion basically didn't set that in place. So you were just basically getting £10 for every 10 reds that come in. So quickly figured out that the expected value of that was worth 35 pence. So what I scrambled around, got my laptops together, and basically got one going, had auto spin going every 5 seconds on red, or red or black, I think it was red. And basically was playing roulette for 9.5 hours straight, spinning every 5 seconds, which is pretty cool. Early days for us. Just moved to Australia, paid my rent for a fair few months, basically. Ended up making about £2,600 from that one offer. And then by the time in the morning, it got cut off at 9 o'clock UK time because, Sky Bet offices obviously opened and they've obviously seen what the hell's been going on, and they've lost a decent chunk of money because there was just tons of people in the community, getting involved. And back to the community, it's you don't know about these opportunities unless someone's willing to share, and they do happen. There are some significant loopholes to take advantage of, and it's just being in the right place at the right time to know about them. That's one of my stories.
I like. I'm going to share Sam's another story from you, Sam. I like how you actually first got into match. Well, or first learned to take advantage of like these kind of things, which is the story that you had with your family. That in the UK, like this brand, Chris Walker's Crisp, was probably the most like famous brand of crisp, and they had a promotion whereby if you had to choose, you got a token with your like crisp packet, and then you could like put it on it, and if it rained, then you got, what was it, £5?
£10.
£10 for like you're choosing the square in the UK when it rains. So like Sam was going around like buying up all these packets of crisps, and because obviously like it pisses it down with rain all the time in the UK, he was just making loads of money. So it's like a form of like advantage gambling just done from a packet of crisps, which I thought was hilarious.
I had so many crisps in that house, it was pretty cool. And just like, yeah, me and my dad just cycling through all these vouchers and putting them into the Walker's Crisp site. It was crazy. Just picking, south of Ireland and Wales where it pisses it down all the time. It was incredible.
I think we're going to fanboy Sam here. One of my favourites was when we have meetups every now and then where we invite members to come to a race meet or something like that. We were at Moonee Valley one night. We were watching the trackside bookmakers, and they had. We noticed that there's two of them. There's one, twirling and taking the bets. Another one sitting there on Betfair setting the prices. We thought, I wonder if we could influence his prices a bit. So Sam's opened up Betfair on his phone. All right, let's try and push this one out. Throw a bunch on the lay. I think he put down 1,000. Didn't move an inch. Had to trade out, and that was a $150 lesson that the bookmaker wouldn't move when we tried to nudge him.
But it was that same race where I made money, though, wasn't it, Sam?
By was accident.
Yeah, I was like getting on in play. I was pretty blind at that time. And back to the incorrect horse from what I wanted, and it still won anyway. So that was typical Sam variance at play there.
This is the first successful three-way podcast, or four-way, I suppose, but 3 guests in one. I want to thank you all very much for coming on and certainly sharing your wisdom around match betting.
Lovely. Thanks for your time, mate.
Yeah, thank you very much, mate. Appreciate it.